The knock at my door wasn't polite. It was the kind that rattles wood, the kind that says trouble is already here before you even open it. When I swung it wide, 2 uniformed deputies stood on my porch, their cruiser lights flickering in the morning mist. Behind them, waddling with her arms crossed like she owned the whole valley, was Karen, our HOA president, our neighborhood tyrant, and the one person I never wanted to see on my land. She smirked like she had already won, her voice slicing through the silence. We're here to seize this property. You violated community rules, and the HOA is taking possession. My jaw clenched so hard I thought my teeth might crack. Seize my property? This wasn't some pool violation or mailbox complaint. This was my grandfather's homestead, land that had been in our family for nearly a century, handed down through sweat and sacrifice. Karen's words weren't just arrogant, they were an assault on everything my family had built. One deputy shifted uncomfortably. Sir, we received a call from the HOA president. She claims this property has been abandoned and is subject to repossession. I laughed bitterly, gesturing around me. Do I look like I abandoned anything? I've been here every day, restoring the barn, repairing the fences, planting new crops. She's lying, and you're standing on my porch because of it. Karen stepped forward, her heels crunching on the gravel, her voice dripping venom. Don't play the victim. This place is a hazard, an eyesore, and it lowers everyone else's property value. The HOA has the right to intervene. That was the moment my anger burned into something sharper. I had expected Karen's harassment, but not this brazen stunt with law enforcement. If she thought I was going to crumble, she had picked the wrong fight. I told the deputies to wait, then disappeared inside. When I came back, I wasn't holding a lawyer's letter or some flimsy HOA appeal. I carried a thick, binder-me weapon of choice, stronger than any attorney's argument. It was filled with certified documents, the original deed signed by my grandfather, tax receipts stamped year after year, and, most importantly, a county-issued exemption designating this property as a registered agricultural homestead, placing it outside HOA jurisdiction altogether. I spread the papers across the hood of their cruiser, each page slamming down like a hammer. Read it. Every line. This land predates the HOA, and by state law, they have no authority here. She can scream about bylaws all day long, but the law of the land trumps her little handbook. The deputies looked at each other, then at the documents. I saw their shoulders loosen as the truth sank in. One cleared his throat. Ma'am, he said to Karen, these records are valid. This property is exempt. We can't enforce HOA rules here. Karen's face turned crimson, her lips trembling as the certainty drained from her. She started shouting, wild and unhinged, demanding they arrest me anyway. But then something happened I didn't expect. From behind the tree line, a truck pulled up, engine rumbling, and out stepped an older man in a county assessor's jacket. It was Mr. Alvarez, a quiet neighbor who worked at the courthouse. He'd heard about Karen's schemes and had come with his own stack of records. I saw the call come in and knew she was pulling something dirty, he said. This land is untouchable, and if she keeps harassing you, she'll be facing criminal charges for filing false reports. The deputies straightened, now clearly annoyed at being used as pawns. They turned to Karen. Ma'am, you've wasted county resources with a fraudulent complaint. Consider this your warning. Next time, you'll be in cuffs. Her mouth fell open like a fish gasping for air, but no sound came. For the first time, the queen of fines and threats stood powerless, her empire crumbling in front of the very people she'd tried to manipulate. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The padlocked gate, the deed in my hand, and the truth standing beside me were louder than any insult. But deep inside, I felt a surge of something more than victory. It was liberation. For years, Karen had ruled with intimidation, turning neighbor against neighbor, hiding behind the illusion of power. Now the illusion was shattered, and everyone could see the truth. Her authority was nothing more than hot air. And this was only the beginning of her downfall. Karen didn't disappear after the deputies left that day. No, she doubled down. That's who she was, someone who mistook stubbornness for strength, someone who believed shouting louder would erase the truth. Within a week, flyers appeared in mailboxes across the neighborhood, stamped with the HOA logo. They claimed my cabin and land were under review for community repossession and warned residents that squatters and troublemakers, were a threat to property values. She'd stooped low enough to label me a squatter on my own family land. Neighbors began whispering, but this time it wasn't in her favor. The video of the deputy confrontation had already gone around, and most folks weren't buying her story anymore. Still, the tension built until the next HOA meeting. Daniel and Mr. Alvarez came with me, both carrying binders of evidence. I walked into that fluorescent-lit rec hall with my head high, my boots echoing against the tile. Karen was already at the front, waving her arms, preaching about bylaws to anyone who would listen. But her voice cracked with desperation. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't raise my voice. I simply laid down the documents on the table for everyone to see. The deed, the exemption, the assessor's certification. Each piece of paper stripped away her lies until they lay bare in the silence of the hall. This land was ours long before there was an HOA, I said, my voice steady. And no matter how loud Karen shouts, she cannot rewrite history. The twist came when Alvarez pulled out one last folder, one Karen hadn't seen coming. It wasn't about my land, it was about hers. For years, she'd been skimming HOA funds, billing consulting fees to a shell company she secretly owned. Thousands of dollars drained from neighbors who thought they were paying for landscaping and road repairs. Alvarez had dug into the county records and traced it all back to her. As he laid out the proof, gasps rippled through the room. Phones lit up. Neighbors recorded, documented, sent the scandal flying across group chats like sparks through dry grass. Karen's face turned from red to pale. She slammed her binder shut, her words sputtering into nonsense. Lies. Fabrications. You can't prove, but the proof was right there, stamped and signed by county auditors. For years she had fined us for violations, all while pocketing the money behind our backs. Now every eye in that room burned into her, not with fear, but with fury. A man in the back stood up. You fined me $200 because my son parked in the cul-de-sac for 10 minutes. Where did that money go, Karen? Another neighbor shouted. You made me repaint my fence 3 times, then charged me for inspection fees. That was just your scam, wasn't it? The crowd surged against her, a wave of outrage she could no longer control. For once, her voice failed. She stood frozen as if nailed to the floor, every ounce of her imagined authority stripped away. By the end of the night, the vote was unanimous. Karen was removed from office, barred from holding any HOA position again, and placed under investigation for fraud. She staggered out of the hall with her binder clutched to her chest like a shield made of paper, but it couldn't protect her anymore. Her empire was dust. Weeks later, I watched from my porch as county officials boxed up files from the HOA office. Word spread fast. Karen had been charged with embezzlement, fraud, and misuse of public resources. The very sheriff's deputies she once summoned as her enforcers now escorted her out in handcuffs. The woman who believed she owned the law had finally been caught in its grip. But what mattered more than her downfall was what rose from it. Without Karen's shadow, the community began to heal. Neighbors who once lived in fear of citations came together to fix what really needed fixing: potholes, broken fences, shared spaces. The HOA stopped being a weapon and started becoming what it should have been all along, a support system. One evening, a group of kids biked past my gate. They stopped to read the wooden sign still hanging there, the one that declared, "My land, not yours." One of them grinned and said, "Mister, that's the coolest sign in the whole neighborhood." I laughed, realizing it had become more than a warning. It was a symbol, a reminder that standing your ground, armed with truth and courage, was stronger than any bully's bluff. So I share this story with you now, not because Karen's fall gave me satisfaction, but because it gave us all freedom. It showed us that when lies collide with truth, the truth will win even if it takes a fight. What do you think? Was I right to slam that evidence on the cruiser, to call her bluff with something stronger than a lawyer? Or should I have played it differently? Share your thoughts, because sometimes justice isn't written in courtrooms. Sometimes it's written on wooden signs and in the courage to stand firm.